Estuaries exist along narrow fringes of coastline where freshwater rivers meet the ocean. Their peaceful waterways and wild lands nurture rare and endangered species and valuable marine life. People flock here too for a visit or to live out their lives. The Association of National Estuary Programs works to preserve some of these unique ecosystems. Their biggest challenge, to protect them from human encroachment. In other words, from people like us. This vast wilderness is the Mobile-Tensaw Delta, located in southern Alabama. It's the largest intact wetlands in the United States. The best way to get a feel for the Delta is to take a slow boat ride deep into its sultry marshes and narrow waterways. For more than 20 years, Dr. John Dindo, a researcher at Dauphin Island Sea Lab, has studied this fascinating ecosystem.
The biodiversity of this region is extreme. You're looking at extending from the Gulf Coast sandy beaches to the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains north of Birmingham on up through Fort Payne, Alabama. And within that region, because of that long north-south direction and changing from a mountain range to a coastal plain, we have over 200 threatened species just within the state of Alabama, of plants and animals.
Dozens of endangered species and rare plants exist in the Delta today, but some have lost the battle. Almost half of all wildlife extinctions in the United States in the past 100 years have occurred in the Mobile Bay watershed.
This wildlife habitat is critical to the continuation of many species. In fact, we have 67 rare or endangered species within the Mobile-Tensaw River, including the last remnants of the black bear in Alabama, the Alabama red-bellied turtle, the indigo snake, and many others.
It's impossible to see more than a fragment of the Delta in a day. This 400-square-mile maze of rivers, bayous, marshes, and forest drains about 1/5 of the nation's fresh water into the Gulf of Mexico, feeding nutrients into Mobile Bay's rich fisheries.
The bay itself provides about a $3 billion impact on the state of Alabama's economy each year.
The National Park Service has designated the Mobile-Tensaw Delta a National Natural Landmark, and the Alabama Environmental Council named it one of the state's 10 natural wonders. For naturalists like John Dindo, it all comes down to a morning well spent away from civilization. The sight of orca whales frolicking in Puget Sound is an uplifting experience for many people, especially for Ken Balcom, director of the Center for Whale Research on San Juan Island. He has studied native populations of orcas here since 1976, when he started a program to document killer whales around coastal Washington.
The annual orca survey is a photo identification of each individual in the community. And we just tabulate at the end of the year how many are there and who's had new babies and who's died. And we've done this every year for 27 years. The original purpose was to just tell the government how many whales were here for a harvest program they had, catching whales and selling them around the world. And we found that the population was at risk at that time in the 70s. It increased following banning of captures, and now it's declining again, and we're trying to find the reason for that.
In 2002, the center teamed with the National Marine Fisheries Program in Seattle to rescue a 1-ton baby orca named Springer, found swimming alone in the Sound. Springer's family had migrated to Canadian waters, leaving the baby to fend for herself. The team first transported Springer to Manchester Field Station, a research site run by the National Marine Fisheries Service. It was an ironic choice of holding areas. This was once a federal Superfund cleanup site.
The Manchester Station was a U.S. naval dump for the Bremerton Naval Shipyard. Virtually every toxic chemical made by man has been dumped in the near-shore waters and on land of that site. Obviously, when you have warships and warplanes, and you know, they're toxic in themselves. They're designed to destroy environments, and usually the other guys. But the runoff that came off our bases is destroying our own environment.
High levels of toxins found in dead whales indicate they may be eating fish contaminated by runoff from surrounding military, industrial, and residential sites. It's one factor responsible for a drastic decline in their numbers, almost 20% over the past 5 years. Salmon, the orca's most important food source, are now listed as an endangered species. Restoring healthy salmon runs is a major factor in whether Puget Sound whales can survive.
In some cases, fish simply just don't have the spawning areas that they used to have. In some cases, their migratory routes have been dramatically altered. A lot of that's, most of the freshwater damage is due to one of three things, either forestry activities, urbanization, or agriculture. The major impact around the Puget Sound area and the estuaries is probably mostly related to people, is the effect of people on the landscape. One of the big challenges here are people and salmon, can they coexist?
Today, Puget Sound's orca still delight sightseers, but no one knows how long it will last. This estuary is home to almost 4 million people, and another million are expected to move here within 20 years. The estuary program is looking for ways to forge a balance between the needs of people, whales, and all living things in the ecosystem.
I think the future of Puget Sound and the species that we think of when we see Puget Sound, the orca whale, the salmon, I think that is in jeopardy if we just continue the way we have. I think the messages we're getting from orca whale and from salmon are we need to improve our behaviors, and that's a challenge to us as individuals, as communities, and as governments and businesses.
Changing people's behaviors is often a long, difficult process. Those who care about Puget Sound hope its resident orcas can afford to wait.
It isn't going to get better in the next 2 decades. Hopefully, we will have some matrilions survive into the middle of the century and repopulate the area. But as it's going, we're going to have plenty of opportunity for argument for the rest of my lifetime.
Across the nation, coastal populations are exploding. 60% of Americans live within 50 miles of the coast, and thousands more arrive every day. The Association of National Estuary Programs is showing us we all can play a role in preserving quality of life for the residents of these watery environs.